My name is Andreas. I am with SAP. I've been at SAP for about 10 years, working in mobile since then, various roles on server and client topics, and the last 2 years, since SAP and Apple partnered to build enterprise apps for iOS, I've been working on this partnership and working on the SDK for iOS that I'm going to talk about today. Before I focus on the SDK, and I'll only show 2 slides and then do all demos and of toolkits and SDKs, I'll just show, I think it's worth showing a bit the end-to-end landscape that we're thinking about when we talk about mobile app development at SAP, so that all you're seeing makes sense and kind of comes together in the demo part. So when we think about mobile app development for the enterprise, we really don't have only this mobile app piece in mind, where of course we do support development of native apps. We also support building metadata-driven dynamic apps, as well as more static apps for like card wallet type of applications. But the mobile app is only part of it, right? One very critical part of it is also that once you build these mobile apps, you want to connect them to your backend. You want to be able to manage them. You want to be able to support your users. And this is where the SAP Cloud Platform is very central in our end-to-end landscape when it comes to building mobile applications. So the SAP Cloud Platform is SAP's PaaS offering. It has a wide variety of infrastructure services, developer services, business services as well. And the piece that is most critical for us right now today is what's in the middle, the mobile services for development and operations that help connecting mobile apps through the cloud platform, to your actual backend systems, either on-premise or cloud backend systems. But you can also leverage all the other services on Cloud Platform that we have. There's these infrastructure services like in-memory database, HANA, document service, IoT services. We allow deploying Java apps, HTML5 apps on Cloud Platform. We do a great deal on identity and authentication, which is very relevant if you build enterprise apps, so that people can actually log on to the app with their credentials that they also use in their corporate environment. And we do also some innovative stuff around SAP Leonardo with machine learning, blockchain, and these technologies. But then ultimately, you want to connect to third-party cloud systems, or you want to connect to backend systems that run on-premise in a data center somewhere, and SAP has the SAP Cloud Connector that establishes that secure tunnel, so that you can go from the mobile app via Cloud Platform to your on-premise backend, all end-to-end in a secure way. All right, so this is the end-to-end thing, and I'll also show the cloud part of it as well in a second. But now let's look at the mobile app development and how the SDK itself helps building mobile applications. So when you download the SDK, and we'll share download links later, you will get a tool on your laptop that is called the SAP Cloud Platform SDK for iOS Assistant that helps creating apps for using our SDK. It's a tool set that helps creating scaffolding application code. It connects to the cloud. It does cloud configuration for you from your laptop, and it helps getting going on this native app that you ultimately want to build. And the first thing where we help a lot is when it comes to the data model and the model generation. So the assistant will connect to your backends. It will read, or it will understand what backend services you have, and it will create a strongly typed data model for you, so that you can then use that data model and code completion when you write your code, your app, to interact with the data model. The reason why this works well is that we don't use Wild West REST-style APIs usually in these enterprise scenarios, but there's a REST API standard called OData, where you have a metadata document that describes the service kind of formally in an XML. And by looking at it, we can understand that, what are the entities of that service, what are the allowed operations, and then we automatically know what type of interaction patterns are allowed with that backend, and we can create the required code so that in your app you can work on strongly typed objects for customers and products, etc., and you don't need to build up JSON or XML documents yourself. It's a bit similar to WSDL documents in SOAP web services, if anybody used that 20 years ago here. So that is what we do. The next thing is enterprise is in the subject as well of this talk. So we also help with enterprise integration. So the corporate identity provider is a very central piece in this. If you build apps that for the enterprise, for enterprise customers, people do want to use their authentication credentials as they use them everywhere else. And the SAP Cloud Platform helps to connect to corporate identity providers, to third-party IDPs. And then we do support OAuth or SAML or basic or certificate authentication. And it's very easy to integrate this into the app that you're building. So we are really just relying on these standards that we have. And that's true in general. So whatever we do here, we try to avoid as much as possible any SAP, any proprietary technology stack. We do use standards like OAuth, standards like REST and OData when it comes to building mobile applications, so that you can also freely combine our SDK with other backends and other third-party systems and just use whatever suits the purpose best freely. The thing that you can use if you want to start playing around with our stuff and if you don't have a backend system available for you is the SAP API Business Hub. It's, again, a service on the cloud platform. You can go to api.sap.com and browse enterprise backend services, and you can start to use this as a sample service to use our SDK and build these mobile applications. It's very easy to use. There's just a quick registration required for anybody open, and you can get going. Very critical when it comes to building enterprise apps is that these apps need to work always. They don't need to work only when you are on 4G or Wi-Fi connection. They always need to work. So, and more often than not, at least in enterprise scenarios, you are in situations where you don't necessarily have good reception, right? So we want to make sure that these apps work offline as well. And because we use the OData service structures where we can understand the service very well, we can allow to actually also offline the services, go to the backend and capture the data and build a database that we can send to the device locally so that you can then work on the device with the data, even if you're not online. So, and that is very convenient because there's one development model. We have one API that you can use to build this application, and then under the hoods there is a service on Cloud Platform, and there's SDK components that take care of grabbing backend data, stuffing it into a database, and sending it to a device and making it accessible to you. And then also there's the APIs that allow, again, to synchronize with the backend, get any changes to the device, and send any local modifications that you've made back to the backend. So this is not a read-only cache. It is much more. It really allows to have the data locally on the device, run the same query operations on the device that you would also use when you were connected to the backend online, and it's all with the same one single programming model. So this is very, very helpful. And the last point that I want to talk about, we don't only work on the model and the data and the security side, we also do support you on the UI side as well. We did work on a design guidelines with Apple together on how to build enterprise apps, and we kind of extended the human interface guideline that Apple has, and we extended on top of it where enterprise controls were missing. So we have a bunch of controls that are not part of Apple's native UI kit, and they are maybe sometimes hard to find, but we found them very useful when building enterprise applications, and that comes as part of the Fiori UI kit, and we do allow you to build certain UI patterns that we see often in a very, very easy way with that. And now what I'm going to do is I'll just show you quickly how mobile services looks like on the cloud, and then I'll use that assistant and the tools around it to show you how to create a mobile app using our SDK in the remaining 20 minutes that I have or so. Right. All right, so we start here. Anybody interested in using mobile services? Our cloud service can go to hanatrial.ondemand.com and do a self-registration, and then this will take you to our mobile services cockpit where, okay, I need to log on. Where you can manage your application. So each mobile app that we do has its counterpart in the cloud where the app is configured. And in this example here, I already have one native mobile app configured that is called App Builders. And this is where I can control certain things like the security settings, if I want to do an offline app, how this whole stuff should work. I can use push notification support there so that it's very easy for backends to integrate and send push notifications into my mobile app. And all of that is supported with SDK counterparts. And what I can do under important links is I can then connect my mobile services instance with the SDK for iOS Assistant so that I can use the assistant to do all the cloud configuration for me. And that's what I'll That's what I'll do now. So when you download the SDK, this is the tool that you will get. It's called the SAP Cloud Platform SDK for iOS Assistant. And this one is already, let me open the preferences, this one is already connected to my mobile services instance that I have already here. So what I'll do now, and what you want to do when you try this out, is I'll say that I just create an app. I give it a name. This is very much the Xcode project coordinates that you always need to give when you want to create an Xcode project. And then I move on now from the project properties to the cloud configuration side of it. So now I'm saying that I want to create an app that is connected to my app builder's mobile services account. And if I have more, then in this dropdown, there's a couple more that I could select. And then I can decide that I now want to start either creating a completely new application or create a mobile app that connects to existing cloud configuration, or I can create a sample app, which is what I'm going to do right now. And the sample app automatically comes with a test sample backend system so that everything is just set out in place and you don't need to depend on a backend system to be ready for you. An alternative could be that you also use the SAP API Hub and the APIs that we have there for free to consume, but I'll go with a sample for now. All right, so I'll go here, I continue. It will automatically have a test OData service, backend service, set up for me as well. And then on the last step, I can also create a couple optional features. I want to create a UI, I want to have logging enabled and push. That's all great, so I'll hit finish. And now what's happening while this thing here is spinning, and depending on the Wi-Fi, we'll see how long this takes. But that is, it'll now go to the backend. It'll read this metadata definition file that I talked about from the backend service, and it creates Swift classes for me that are a representation of that backend service, and it also creates a UI for me already, so that I have a simple data browsing UI API that allows me to quickly have something going. So if I just don't do anything but start this, you'll just get a feeling that this is now I have now an app that can go from the mobile via Cloud Platform to a backend. It will be authenticated. It will read data. It will show me the data, and I can also edit the data. And the whole thing is enabled end-to-end using the SDK for iOS. So in this project here, we now have a couple frameworks included. This is what SAP ships as the SDK for iOS. And we'll look at the source code in a second, just so that you see what we got now. Let me just quickly go here. So this is now the test app that I created. Let's go ahead and get started and onboard to this app. This will now read configuration, go to the cloud, and figure out how to authenticate. Okay. Well, maybe bad internet anyway. So let me go on in the project then. So, and what it actually created for us is it created the code for what we call onboarding to guide the user through these initial steps of logging in, running the OAuth flow, managing the OAuth token securely in the keychain on the device, and using that token again when you come back to the app later. So all of that stuff is taken care for you. You don't need to do anything for this. It created the UI, the view controller. So we'll see that the sample service here that has customers, for example. So there's a master detail view for the customers and the view controllers to see a list of customers and the customer details. And here I'll see the storyboards that we created for this, including the UI controls that are used. So here we can see that there's actually previews of the UI components that we're using. So in this, let's say here, this is the simple case. There's a control called Fiori UI Simple Property Form Cell. And we did include some metadata into the binary framework so that you can actually see a preview of the controls as we use them in the storyboard here. And you can, as you change things, you will get the live preview. So if I type stuff in here, it'll actually show me the preview of this in the storyboard. So that's a very convenient way of designing your UI, using our UI controls, and immediately getting visual feedback about what's going on. And down here in the proxy classes section, this is where we created the data model for you that connects to the backend automatically. So down here, you'll see, for example, that there's a customer. That this is generated code. It's not necessarily meant for the human eye. But what you see is that there's a customer, and the customer has, a first name, a house number, a last name, phone number, all these different properties. And when you now write code in your app, in your view controllers, and you want to access the backend and you want to interact with the backend, you can just use Xcode and code completion to fill data into this data model. And it will also have the right data types. It's not all strings. If it's a number, it's a number. If it's a date, it's a date. So you have quite good type checking here automatically because of this OData service feature that the backend tells you what it expects. It's not free-form REST. That sense. Now this here is a bit unfortunate. Let me try it one more time. If this doesn't work, then let me go back to the app. So if I were to go past that, I would come into an app like this, where I see what my backend has to offer. I'll see, for example, products, and then, okay, I guess no internet means no internet. It will actually load a list of products and show these products to me. Now, as a next step, what you want to do now is, if you have such an app that works ideally and shows you how it connects with the backend and reads all that data, you'll then want to start changing things and play around, right? So you can then go into the structure here with a few controllers, and you can change how the UI looks like. You can also explore how these controls, how the backend interaction works. And in particular for the UI part, we have a nice app on the App Store. It's an iPad app that is called the Fiori Mentor. So I'll open this quickly in the simulator, iPad simulator. If you download this can be used to browse our UI catalog and see the controls that we offer, and it gives you code snippets that you can copy and paste into your actual app project to start using our stuff. So I can just go here see a list of all the UI components that we ship. So here you get a quick overview of what we have. So there's UI components that allow you to build charts or attachment handling or collection views, all type of things. And all of these controls implement what I call the Fiori for iOS design language, defining how UI controls should look like that are in compliance with the SAP Fiori design guidelines. So what I could do is I can now search for one that I know that is called object cell, and tap on the details, and then it'll give me a preview on how this thing looks like. So this is meant to be used to present information on objects, whatever that is, and it is laid out in a way that you always have or can have a picture on the left, some details, a description on it, and some further information on the right. And then there's a couple of different styles that you can just click through this here, right? How this can look like, and I get a preview of how that will look like on an iPad app. If I'm interested in iPhone, I can do the same thing here down here. I'll tap on iPhone, and it'll show me how these things will look like on iPhone. And then if I'm happy with one of these, I can then go tap on the code icon here, and it will then give me the Swift code that I need to copy and paste into my mobile app to actually get exactly that cell in that configuration that I just saw in the preview into my app. So I can also, if I'm not absolutely satisfied, I can even go here and control all the settings. Maybe I don't want to have a subheadline, I'll turn it off or on, and then all that will be reflected in the code that I produce. So what I could do is I could go here, select all this and copy it. And if this was a real iPad, I would probably use the universal clipboard to do this. And then I can go in here into, let's say, the customer class, and then actually modify the Swift code in here, so that instead of returning whatever it's doing here in the default, to reuse one of these object cells and use the values as I want it. So I'll just, because pasting it all in here will destroy things a bit, I'll just paste it in here. So I will copy stuff into the view.load. So that I can use this object table view cell. Go here and view.load. I'll overwrite what I have here. I need a reuse identifier. Okay. And then now comes the real stuff. In the where lost it? cell for row add. I'll now paste the code that it created for me here to actually produce one of these object cells and return it. So I'll take this out, paste this in, and now comes another advantage of these proxy classes that we produce. These, the classes, the data model for the backend interaction. Because we understand the backend and the semantics so well, and because we have these strongly typed APIs, I can now very easily just say that, there's this customer that should show in this row. So I simply start typing customer dot, and then I'll see all the properties of whatever that customer has. So I can say, okay, maybe here I want to show the first name of that customer in the headline text, and maybe I want to show the last name of the customer here. Now, this doesn't necessarily need to make much sense now, but this shows how easy it is to browse our UI catalog, take the code that you need to instantiate one of these cells or views that we have, or charts, and take it into either the existing project that we created with the assistant, or take it into any other project that you already have, assuming you have the SDK for iOS frameworks included in your project. That stuff will work just fine, and it's very straightforward. Now, I have that slight feeling that because somehow these apps won't connect with the internet, that part of the demo will go sideways. But this would now be the time where you could actually see that if I start the app again, I would see now a different representation of the customer with the object cell showing up and showing me how I would use this nice control instead of this plain list view that I had earlier, and then I can take it from there, right? So that, I think that's what I wanted to show in the demo. That gives you the quick run through to, we have Cloud Platform, we configure apps there, we have the assistant, we can create an app that connects via Cloud Platform to a backend system, and then we have all the tools here that make it very easy to handle authentication and backend connectivity and security, so that you can then, focus on the actual native app development using SAP's UI controls, using Apple's UI controls, using anybody else's UI controls, and go ahead and focus on building the actual app part versus trying to mess with authentication or other stuff. Oh, it looks like maybe internet is back, so let me try this one more time. But I mean, here you can see that, right? So that's a test that I made earlier today. I did just some modifications, and then it shows up slightly different. So one last chance. Let's see. Okay, this is a pity. Regardless, so let's go back to this here. Okay, so just to repeat this quickly, and I'm sorry about the internet failing on me or the connectivity failing on me. So what you saw is that I used the assistant to connect to the cloud platform to create cloud configuration there. Then it did go from there to the backend, understood the backend service semantics, created the data model for me, for my mobile application in an Xcode project. It also added all the frameworks so that I could then use the Mentor app to browse the UI controls and also add more UI controls and make the app look different in Xcode. And then if all that works and you've done it a couple of times, you can really come, assuming you have that backend there, you can come to a working app in a couple of minutes and then take it from there and build it out from there. So it's a really easy to use toolset to build mobile applications. So if you do want to try all this out, there's a couple tutorials on the internet. So the links are there. We will distribute the slides. We also have a couple flyers with barcodes to scan so that you can get access to the things. The SDK is available for free. You can download this. Also, the Cloud Platform has free trial accounts, so you can try things out there also. And then there's plenty of tutorials and trainings and courses that you can follow through to do what I've done and try experiment with that stuff a bit more. We also have SAP TechEd is our conference series, so there's plenty videos on there also that you can watch. And if you do want to get a bit more engaged, there's a few events planned later this year in this region. where we do give people hands-on exercises so that you can come there, you get a code challenge, and you can then work with SAP experts to design and code an application yourself. We'll have a couple in June and a bit north of here, and then in fall we'll also plan an event happening in Zurich. If you are interested in participating there, we have Marcel here. Say hello. So you can come to Marcel, and he'll get in touch with you. That's all that I wanted to show. I think it's a bit difficult asking questions here, shouting, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. I'll stay around. Just come to the podium, and we can talk about any questions that you might have. Thank you.